What is going on, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to another edition of On the Road to Victory. I am your host, Jimmy Smith, and I hope you're all having yourselves a great Saturday night. We're here a little after 8:30 in my town, but look, wherever you're tuning in, I appreciate you. You guys last night tuned in for Fan Friday. A great time. Truly appreciate that. Sorry, knocked myself out at work yesterday. Been a wild week here. Not going to lie to you. Just went and got a nice hot shower, try to clean it up again. Took a nice one. But look, we're here. Nothing's going to stop us. Just like the Philadelphia Eagles. And this train keeps on rolling. Draft season, baby. So less than 3 weeks away. Hopefully you're getting pumped up about this. But we've gone through quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers. Now we're jumping into the tight ends. We're going to talk about what the Eagles have in this year's draft. The next couple of years, we'll talk about what we have at tight end. Then we'll take a look at the draft prospects, where I feel the positions of need are for the Eagles and where we should look. And then, of course, the top fits. So let's talk about it, ladies and gentlemen. Anything on your mind, questions, comments, whatever's going on, I'd love to hear from you. But, yeah, let's jump right into this, and I'll get into the offensive line. As you guys know, I told you my birthday's on Monday, so next couple of days are going to be a little busy. On Tuesday, I will drop that offensive line video. Then we'll get into the defense. Leading into the draft, I'll give you the rookie cap hits. We'll do the mock 1 point only. We'll do my pick for this year's draft. We'll do all that stuff leading into this. So I told you time would fly, and it's almost here. But let's jump into this talking about the Eagles draft picks. And they haven't been solidified yet as to what exactly each one is. We know pick 32. And obviously the compensatory picks, everything that goes in will change things. But you can see with our projected comp picks, we have 11 picks next year, 7 the following year. And you could trade all of these picks. You can play with them, use them as ammo. So 26 picks in the next 3 years. So Howie Roseman, is a true wizard, and he'll be doing his thing when it comes to draft time on the 24th there, 25th, 26th, you get it. So let's rock and roll, Howie. You've got the ammo to do it. First, second, third, fourth, and then 4/5. Oh, hell yeah. So maybe we trade back, acquire more back-end picks if there's guys we like. But there's so many things you could do here. So I'm pumped up. But one of the things we've talked about for the last couple of years is the tight end position. And when it's time for Dallas Goedert, are we going to re-sign him? What are we going to do? And I think that there's obviously a lot of chatter about him being traded. And I get it. Contract year, you want to get something in return instead of letting him walk. But you could get that comp pick if he does walk. So a lot of things to consider there. Depends on what people are offering. And I really enjoyed, getting Harrison Bryant and Granson in the free agent period there, that we talked about both of those guys as top fits for the Eagles. So for me, I have tight end here, on more so the side of it, not really a need, but you need to look to the future always. And I think that's a position where we might not necessarily need it at this moment. I mean, if you trade Goddard, yeah, but take a look at what we have here. Maybe you'll see what I'm seeing. Look, you got Calcaterra and Jenkins again, but Bryant, Granson, we mentioned them. And then you have the reserve future guys in Cameron Latu and Nick Muse. So you have 7 guys already competing there. Azoma, he's a free agent. That's fine. But you could still look to the future here. I think Harrison Bryant in the right system we talked about could be the future. So maybe he's the replacement for Goddard, and we just don't know it yet. Granson here, more of your receiving tight end, but not the greatest. He's definitely a depth piece. But look, man, any of these guys could step up. So it's not necessarily a need here that you have to go out and get somebody. But that's the great thing about the Eagles. We talked about it. This is a roster that's still very stacked. I understand people are very confused and upset about, free agents going to other places, but it happens every year. That's how it works. And the Eagles have already, pretty much done what they needed to at these positions where they've lost people. So we already had guys drafted in years prior, waiting for Sweat to leave, waiting for Milton Williams. We know these things. So you can check out my breakdowns and all that stuff. But I think tight end, if Goddard's still here, that's how I feel about it. If he's gone, then things change, and you'll definitely want to be looking into this draft. But let's talk about the prospects first and foremost, and we'll talk about the guys I see at the back end here. And look, there's always a chance you could add, these guys that are undrafted. Maybe they go in the 6th, 7th round. It really depends on how things are shaking out for the tight ends. But these are the back end guys I see, day 3, undrafted free agents here. So a lot of options at tight end here. But I think, some viable ones that we'll talk about here in my top fits. But if there's anybody you like here, something you want to know about any of these guys, feel free to let me know. But moving up to the 4th, 5th round area, I think Mitchell Evans out of Notre Dame, Ferguson, Gadsden. And Gadsden, I know there's some praise for him. I understand he probably goes there. I got Jackson Hawes there because he's a beast. He can block. Not the greatest receiver, but I think, I wouldn't be against having, most of these guys here, some upside there. But you'll see in my top fits how I truly feel about some of these guys. But Gunnar Helm there, Harold Fannin, he set the NCAA record for receptions and yards last year. So he's definitely getting some praise there. I can see him going in the 2nd or 3rd round. Mason Taylor, that's Jason Taylor's son. Holy shit, I'm old. Then you got Elijah Arroyo, who I know is getting a lot of steam here. A very, very good receiver. Just not so sure, he's got the build, the blocking. And I understand tight end is definitely a position that you can use those F-type tight ends. We talk about the receiving type guys. But if you're looking for an all-around tight end, not sure he's that guy. But those are the guys I see in the 2nd, 3rd round. Now, 1st round talent, and you never know. Maybe, these guys don't go in the 1st, but I've got my number 1 is Tyler Warren. And then I've got Colston Loveland. And I think Loveland is good enough if a team is, in need of a tight end. Tyler Warren goes. I definitely think he's got the talent to definitely do that. So, a team that's picking at the end of the draft maybe. So 2 guys that I think are definitely very good tight ends and round 1 worthy. But that's how I see the tight ends shaking out. You let me know how you feel about those prospect rankings. But now let me show you my top fits. And I picked a few here because, well, I think it's an important position and always be looking to the future. And there are some guys that maybe are the future. So let's talk about a couple undrafted picks here. And I think, G. Scott Jr. is somebody I would definitely be happy to have on this team. He runs a 4.5, 640. He's 6'3", 239, so maybe, a little undersized, some would say. At 22 years old, spent 5 years at Ohio State. You see only 4 touchdowns, not many catches there. Not the greatest, stats you're looking at, but I think for me, this is somebody who can actually block, who can do things that if he goes undrafted, you definitely bring in someone like him to the camp. But maybe the Eagles acquire one of those late round picks and, maybe they grab him there. But this is a guy that I think can play that inline that we talk about. He's got decent blocking. He's got decent hands. I think, if you go watch his tape, he's actually a pretty, good athlete playing at tight end, and he's got good route running ability. So that's, good. You want that, a high IQ kind of guy that has good route running, finds, himself in those zones where, he can be there for his quarterback. Maybe a little smaller and maybe needs to bulk up if he's going to last in the NFL. But this is somebody that I think is a little slept on and I think could be a good tight end in this league. So up next at number 5 here, I've got another guy, Brant Kuithe, who, for me, this is a guy that could play fullback. He can, play tight end. You see he has some rushes there. 6 rushing touchdowns all last year, 7.5 yards per carry. He has 13 yards per reception there, 2,387 yards with 22 receiving touchdowns. Spent 6 years at Utah, but he's 6'2", 236. So this is a guy that's definitely a little undersized, but that's around the size of Ben Van Sumeren. So just saying, this guy, he could actually be somebody you use as one of those weapons that could play fullback, play a little tight end. Maybe he bulks up a little bit, still kind of small, but a great route runner, man. Like, he's actually a pretty good receiver. And just being able to play both of those positions and running back, fullback, tight end is something impressive. And another high football IQ guy. That's what I'm looking for. And look, the one thing about him is he's had some injuries, so that's why he spent 6 years there. So he's 25 years old. Not exactly, appealing to so many people with that size, the injuries, has some drops in college. So I think for me, not sure he goes drafted, but maybe you find a diamond in the rough, and that's what I'm always looking for in these top fits. So for me, Kuithe would not be a bad option. So go ahead. Now, up next, this is a guy that's definitely getting drafted, and I think he could definitely go in the 2nd round, maybe falls to the 3rd, but only 20 years old, 6'3", 241. again, maybe not the biggest dude. Maybe, people hold that against him. Again, for me, he was 230 at one thing, 240 at another. It's so up and down with the list they give you, and you never know what these kids could do. They're so young, but he definitely needs to bulk up. As I mentioned, he broke the record, NCAA record with receptions and yards last year, so that's fantastic. And I think that he's somebody that can play in that slot, that F-type tight end, and more so, that's who he is, because I don't think he's so much an inline blocking guy. I just don't see him as that Y-type tight end. He's more of, but I think he could eventually do that. I'm not saying he can't. He's a great route runner, great, receiver, so that's fantastic to have on your team in today's NFL. But I think he's going to have to, bulk up a little. He's a good blocker, don't get me wrong. It's just size does matter, and if you're getting bullied, that's no good. 4.71 is a decent time for a tight end. So, yeah, I think for me, I have him here at number 4 because I don't know that I want to use that pick on somebody that I'm hoping becomes something. I'd rather have more of a surefire pick if I'm, using one of my higher draft picks. I like him. I like what he did, but he played at Bowling Green, so I'm not losing my mind. Only 3 years there, but 13.3 yards per reception, 17 touchdowns. He was balling. So I think he'd be a great pickup, but I've got him here at number 4. Now at number 3, I'm going to go with Colston Loveland. And I think this is another kid that's more so a receiver. I don't think his blocking is really good. So that's something he's going to have to work on, but he's a great athlete. He's somebody that he is fun to watch at tight end. And not a big fan of Michigan, but again, somebody that has that great route running and those hands. That's what I'm looking for in these guys. And I think this is probably your best receiver type tight end in this draft. I just feel, he's very talented, but I also think, he had an injury that really, messed with him. And his blocking is definitely in need of some help there. So, look, for me, I think a team could take him in the first round, maybe even the Eagles at 32, and I'd be happy about it. I think Loveland is a prospect, 6'5", 250, only 21 years old, got a bright future, 4.67 40, 12.5 yards per catch, 11 touchdowns there at Michigan, and that's a loaded offense. So to be able to go out and get yours, that's, impressive. So I think Loveland would be a fantastic pickup for the Eagles. But at number 2, I'm going with Gunnar Helm. I just think if you are going somewhere else like edge or offensive line with the, your first pick or even second, a guy like Gunnar Helm, if he's there in the second round or maybe in the third, oh, hell yeah. 6'5", 240. And I know, 240. Look, these guys can put on weight. They toughen up. They get older. They do develop in the NFL, believe it or not. But it's another guy that, I think good route running, like really good route running, actually, and really good hands. He's got great body control. I think this was somebody I really enjoyed watching it. But his blocking, this is somebody who can actually effing block. So I'm a big fan. That's why he is number 2 here on my list. And I think you can find him a little bit down the line. But I think he definitely has to strengthen up. I know it's only a 4.8 40. He's got to toughen up a little bit. I think in this offense, learning from Goddard or being here, learning from some other guys, whatever it is, I think, would definitely benefit him because, he isn't a speedster. He isn't just like Goddard isn't. But, if you could help him learn some things, expand his route tree, do some things where I think would really help him with his blocking, he could be an all-around Y-type tight end, your number 1 tight end. So that's just my opinion on him. You can let me know how you feel, but I'm a fan of Gunnar Helm, and I think it would be a great pickup if you could get him in the 3rd round. I'd be pretty pumped about it. Now, at number 1 here out of Penn State, we're going with Tyler Warren. And I've been waiting for this show because I'm a big fan. So, look, 4.75, 4.68 I've seen on his 40 time. Yeah, either way, he's a round 1 prospect, and he's fast for a tight end. Let's put it that way. He's 23 years old, 6'5", 252, and he's really fun to watch. 56 games in the 5 years he was there, 19 touchdowns, and really came on last year. 11.9 yards per reception there, and this is tight end U, baby. So he got his chance, and he shined. This is a guy that, we talk about having that all-around package. this is like a real weapon, like Dallas Goedert, that you have to be afraid of. This dude in the red zone, that's what the Eagles need. Somebody that I think, can block. He's going to have to work on it a little bit. I think that, he needs to work on his route running, get a little stronger. There's some things that I think he could definitely work on, but that's what you understand. They're young kids, man. And I think in this system, oh my God, he would be effing perfect here. Obviously, I'm a big fan of the long hair here. So let's go. Let's get us some Tyler Warren. Maybe you use that 32nd pick along with a pick from next year. You trade yourself up. You do some things. Maybe you figure it out. But that's the problem at hand here. If you want Tyler Warren, you're going to need Howie to move up to get Tyler Warren. I don't think, he's really going to even fall that close to 32. So you'd have to work some magic there. And look, maybe they're planning on getting rid of Goedert. So they trade Goedert, first-round pick, and something else, and they go grab Tyler Warren. Anything could happen. It's Howie Roseman. It's the NFL draft. Very excited about it. But to me, getting someone like him in this offense, holy shit, Nikes. But again, Helm or Loveland or any of those other guys, I would be excited to see on this team. Really going to depend on what happens with Goedert. Maybe we'll find out closer to the draft or during the draft. But that's my thoughts on it, all I've got for you. But I'd love to hear from you down below. Whatever you got on your mind about tight ends, maybe where I have guys ranked or maybe where I have the position ranked, whatever it is. Love to hear what's on your mind. Hope you're getting excited for this draft. We're going to have those live streams like we always do. Looking forward to those, but always taking all your questions as we go through it. Again, won't be a video unless something happens. Going to be very busy, spending time with family, doing some things. I'm getting old, so better enjoy these birthdays. But I will be back next week with the offensive line. Then we'll get into the defense and everything you need to know heading into this draft. But I appreciate you all taking the time. If you got anything from this video, you enjoyed it, do me a favor. Hit that like button, share this bad boy, subscribe down below. But until next time, I am Jimmy Smith, and this is On the Road to Victory. You all stay safe out there, and as always, go Birds!